will one day become hostage to the ambitions of an upstream power. Pakistan must therefore lead the argument, not as a beggar, not as a victim, not as a state pleading for sympathy, warning the world that the path India has opened is a path towards catastrophe. The treaty lives, Pakistan's rights live, the Sindhu lives, and Pakistan will not surrender the Sindhu. If the entire water supply of a country is cut off, what is that except destruction of a nation by other means? Water strangulation destroys them by thirst, hunger, crop failure, disease, migration, and social collapse. The mushroom cloud appears in one instant. The dead river kills in slow motion. But the strategic meaning is the same. The life of the nation is being attacked. Therefore, Pakistan must not allow the world to hide behind technical language. India will call it a treaty dispute. India will call it administrative abeyance. India will call it hydropower. India will call it development. India will call it a canal, a tender, a study, a survey, an engineering decision. No. A tender is not merely a tender when it is attached to the strangulation of a people. A dam is not merely a dam when it is built on the throat of a nation. A canal is not merely a canal when it proposes to convert Pakistan's lifeline into India's lever of coercion. Pakistan has publicly described attempts to stop or divert its rightful use of water as an act of war. Then let us draw the necessary conclusion. If the final act, the cutting off of Pakistan's waters, is an existential assault, then the steps leading up to that final act cannot be treated as routine. The road to catastrophe is not innocent merely because the catastrophe has not yet arrived. The enemy does not become dangerous only when the last gate is shut. He becomes dangerous when he surveys the site, design, awards the tender, pours the concrete, and normalizes the right to decide whether Pakistanis shall drink or not. A nation that waits until the riverbed is dry has waited too long. That is why Pakistan's response must be graduated, visible, and sovereign. India must be made to understand that there is no cost-free climb up the ladder of water coercion. Every step towards the weaponization of the Indus must produce a corresponding elevation in Pakistan's national response. Political, diplomatic, legal, economic, informational, defensive, and strategic. We do not seek war, but we must recognize war when it is being prepared against us. It is reckless to tell India that it may keep advancing towards Pakistan's existential threshold while Pakistan remains confined to press releases and appeals for understanding. Deterrence fails when red lines become academic. Deterrence fails when adversaries believe he can move step by step, brick by brick, file by file, until the unthinkable becomes normal. Deterrence survives only when the adversary understands that every movement toward the red line carries consequence, risk, and national resistance. This is not a call for panic. This is a call for seriousness. This is not a call for adventurism. It is a call for clarity. This is not a call for Pakistan to abandon law. It is a call for Pakistan to make law, diplomacy, preparedness, and deterrence speak in one voice. India placed the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance as part of Operation Sindhu. Pakistan has treated the suspension as unlawful while preparing legal action and warning that waters diversions would be an act of war. So let the world hear this from Pakistan. We will not allow India to redefine aggression as engineering. We will not allow India to redefine coercion as development. We will not allow India to redefine treaty violation as national security. And we will not allow India to place its hand on the throat of the Indus and then ask Pakistan to behave as though nothing strategic has happened. The Indus is not an ordinary river. It is the civilizational artery of Pakistan. It feeds our fields. It sustains our cities, powers our economy, and binds our federation. To threaten the Indus is to threaten Pakistan itself. And when Pakistan itself is threatened, Pakistan must respond as a state whose survival is at stake. Not tomorrow, not after the last drop, not after the world has held 20 conferences and issued 30 statements of concern. Pakistan must respond at the beginning of escalation, because that is where deterrence either succeeds or dies. The message to India must be unmistakable. You cannot suspend the treaty and expect normal relations. You cannot prepare structures of coercion and expect strategic quiet. You cannot turn water into weapon and expect Pakistan to treat it as paperwork. You cannot march towards an existential threshold and demand that Pakistan remain diplomatically polite. The world has just seen what happens when a waterway becomes a weapon. The Strait of Hormuz is called an artery of the global economy because energy flows through it. The Indus is more than that. It is an artery of national survival. If the closure of Hormuz can shake markets, then the strangulation of the Indus can shake region. That is why the world needs new international law against the weaponization of water. Whether it is a strait, a canal, a river, or a basin, a waterway that sustains civilians must not be converted into a weapon. The law must recognize that in the age of climate stress, water aggression is as destabilizing as military aggression. Pakistan must lead that argument, but Pakistan must also understand that law without power is a petition. Power without law is chaos. We need both. We need the legal case, the diplomatic case, the humanitarian case, the climate case, and the deterrence case. Above all, we need national unity. The Indus belongs to the farmer of Sindh, the grower of Punjab, the worker of Karachi, the family of Balochistan, the mountains of Pakhtunkhwa, and is the future of every Pakistani child. We build resilience because Pakistan must be strong, not because India has the right to steal. We preserve water because our future demands wisdom, not because we accept blackmail. We prepare for scarcity, but we do not legitimize strangulation. The treaty lives, Pakistan's rights live, the Sindhu lives. And any state that imagines Pakistan will surrender the Sindhu has misunderstood our history, our politics, our people, and our resolve. We are a nation born of struggle. We have endured wars and sanctions and floods and terrorism and isolation and betrayal. We are still here. As long as the Sindhu flows through the body of Pakistan, Pakistan will not bow. Let no one misunderstand us. Pakistan's deterrence does not begin when the last drop has vanished. Deterrence begins when the adversary first moves towards the strangulation of a nation. If total water denial is an existential threat, then the path towards total water denial is not innocent. A survey, a tender, a canal, a dam, a diversion, a legal fiction called abeyance, each must be treated not as paperwork, but as movement towards that strategic threshold. Pakistan must make the world understand that the Indus is not a bargaining chip. It is the bloodstream of our republic. To threaten it is to threaten the survival of our state. And when survival is threatened, all instruments of national power become relevant. Diplomacy, law, economy, public mobilization, defense preparedness, and strategic deterrence. We are not discussing irrigation. We are discussing coercion. We are not discussing canals. We are discussing the deliberate manufacture of famine, migration, economic collapse, and national paralysis. A weaponized river can destroy a country in slow motion. The life of a people is under attack. Therefore, India must be told clearly, do not climb this ladder and imagine that Pakistan will remain at the bottom. Do not move brick by brick towards our strangulation and expect only memoranda from Islamabad. Do not mistake Pakistan's appeal for international law for strategic helplessness. We seek peace but not surrender. We seek law but not helplessness. We seek restraint but not national suicide. The Sindhu is not India's weapon. The Sindhu is Pakistan's lifeline, and any attempt to turn that lifeline into a noose must be answered with the full seriousness of a nation defending its existence. The Indus is not merely an artery of Pakistan's economy. It is the bloodstream of Pakistan itself. The Indus is not a river on the map. The Indus is Pakistan in motion. And therefore, India places Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance when India threatens to divert waters that sustain Pakistan. When Indian ministers speak of taking water that flows to Pakistan and sending it elsewhere. This is not paperwork. This is not engineering. This is not administration. This is the weaponization of water. Let no one in New Delhi, Islamabad, Washington, Beijing, London, Riyadh, Tehran, and the United Nations pretend that this is a normal dispute. Pakistan has said that any attempt to divert the flow of water belonging to Pakistan is an act of war. The phrase act of war must not be uttered casually. But once uttered, it must not be hollow. If water strangulation is an act of war, then steps towards water strangulation cannot be treated as acts of peace. If the final cutting off of Pakistan's water would be an existential assault, then the road to that assault is not innocent. The survey is not innocent. The tender is not innocent. The canal is not innocent. The dam is not innocent. The legal fiction of abeyance is not innocent. A noose does not become dangerous only when the neck is broken. It becomes dangerous when it is tied. Therefore, let us say clearly what others are afraid to say. To cut off the waters of Pakistan is to place Pakistan under strategic attack. If the life of the nation is under assault, then Pakistan cannot wait until the riverbed is dry before it wakes up. A state that waits for the last drop has already surrendered the first principle of deterrence. Deterrence is not a speech after defeat. Deterrence is a warning that prevents defeat. So the argument before Pakistan is simple. Every Indian step towards coercive control of Pakistan's waters must be treated as strategic escalation. Every legal fiction, every engineering project, every attempt to normalize unilateral power over Pakistan's lifeline must be answered by corresponding elevation and escalation in Pakistan's national security posture. Not hysteria, not adventurism, not empty shouting, but seriousness. Visible seriousness, sovereign seriousness. India must not be allowed to climb the ladder of water coercion while Pakistan is kept at the bottom issuing press releases. India must not be allowed to move brick by brick towards our strangulation where the world calls for restraint only from the victim. India must not be allowed to convert hydrology into hostility and then hide behind the vocabulary of development. A dam is not merely a dam when it is built on the throat of a nation. A canal is not merely a canal when it is designed to make a people thirsty. A treaty violation is not merely a treaty violation when the treaty protects the lifeline of more than 200 million people. Let the world hear this. Pakistan does not seek war, but Pakistan must recognize when war is being prepared against us. We do not seek confrontation, but we will not accept national suicide as the price of appearing reasonable. The international community must stop treating water aggression as a lesser form of aggression. Whether it is the Strait of Hormuz, the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal, the Nile, the Tigris, the Euphrates, or the Indus, waterways that sustain civilian life and global stability cannot be turned into weapons of coercion. There must be a new international convention against the weaponization of waterways. A convention that says no state may use civilian water dependence as a weapon. A convention that says no upstream power may hold a downstream people hostage. A convention that says no maritime checkpoint may be closed to blackmail. A convention that says water is not a weapon. A convention that says thirst is not diplomacy. A convention that says famine is not statecraft. We must take the climate case to every summit. We must take the diplomatic case to every capital. And Pakistan must make the deterrence case to every strategist who thinks South Asia can survive casual experiments with the Indus. The treaty lives. Pakistan's rights live. The Indus lives. Projects already approved before India's unilateral actions, our reservoirs, our dams, our barrages, our flood systems, our canals, our capacity stores, all must be strengthened because Pakistan needs water security. We are strengthening Pakistan because we have a duty to survive. Resilience is not surrender. Preparedness is not acceptance. Conversion is not concession. Pakistan must prepare for scarcity without legitimizing strangulation. And let us be honest about the wider war being waged against Pakistan. This is not only a water dispute. This is one front in a broader campaign. Pressure at the borders, proxy violence, propaganda, failed attempts at diplomatic isolation, economic coercion, hybrid warfare, and now the threat of hydrological coercion. This is a war by other means. A bullet is not the only weapon. A blockade is a weapon, a sanction can be a weapon, a lie can be a weapon, a proxy can be a weapon, a river can be made into a weapon. And when the river is the Indus, the weapon is aimed at the heart of Pakistan. So let us rise above party, above province, above faction, above the smallness that has too often made Pakistan vulnerable. We do not ask for charity, we demand law. Pakistan was not created to accept thirst as our destiny. The Indus is older than both our flags. It has seen empires come and go. They have all passed. The river remains. Pakistan will remain. The Indus is not negotiable. The Sindhu is not for surrender. Marsu, Marsu, Sindhu na desu. Thank you.
चेयरमैन पीपल्स पार्टी बिलावल भुट्टो जरदारी खिताब कर रहे थे और सिंतास मुआहिदा बैनुल अक़वामी सेमिनार से उन्होंने गुफ्तगू करते हुए ये कहा कि सिंतास मुआहिदे के तहत पाकिस्तान के हिस्से के पानी का तहफ़्फ़ुज़ यकीनी बनाया जाना चाहिए। बिलावल भुट्टो की जानिब से कहा गया कि सिंतास महज एक दरिया नहीं बल्कि एक शरग है। दुनिया को एहसास हो चुका है कि पानी के वसाइल आलमी सियासत में अहम किरदार अदा करते हैं। उन्होंने कहा कि दरियाए सिंध का पानी पाकिस्तान की ज़िंदगी की ज़मानत है। सिंतास मुआहिदा बैनुल अक़वामी सेमिनार से चेयरमैन पीपल्स पार्टी बिलावल भुट्टो जरदारी खिताब कर रहे थे और उन्होंने